Believe it or not, we're only a week away from the All-Star break, which means the first half of the fantasy baseball season will be over. Sure, you get a little break from checking box scores and setting lineups every day, but that doesn't mean that you should be resting. You need to be active, make some good waiver wire pickups right now to get ready for the second half. Let's go the full 9. I'm going to give you 5 hitters and 4 pitchers that you should be looking at on the waiver wire if they're available. First up, well, there's a player that I mentioned. If you checked out my rookie rundown, the last one where I try to predict who might be that next big call up, let's see what Ellie De La Cruz has done for the Reds and for fantasy. It's kind of remarkable. There's always a guy like that. So is Jordan Westburg that next player? I won't go too into detail on him right here because, first of all, I already broke him down in that video, so if you haven't checked it out, do that now. And the other thing is, he's been picked up in a lot of leagues since last week, but I know some, like in NFBC, some leagues where it's a weekly waiver wire run, maybe you didn't get to pick him up because he debuted on Monday. Well, you know what? He is still available. You want to know whether it's worth using a top waiver claim or ponying up a lot of fab for him. I'll tell you right now, yeah, it probably is. In his first few games as a major leaguer, hitting .313, no home runs yet, but he's looking pretty good, hitting either 6th or 7th in the lineup. And the funny thing is, even though he qualifies at shortstop, at least in Yahoo, he hasn't played a game there yet. He's actually playing either third base or second base. But that's a good thing. It's a guy who might wind up getting eligibility at 3 different positions. The power will definitely come. That's kind of his calling card. He has good speed. Don't expect him to be really a base stealer. But yeah, check out that whole profile when I ran down what he should bring to the table. Definitely make him a top priority if he's out there. And then another rookie I did mention last week, Henry Davis of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Another guy who's out of position, sort of. He's a catcher, but he hasn't played catcher at all. He's the everyday right fielder for the Bucks. And that's totally fine. He still qualifies as a catcher in fantasy. That's a big plus. He's hitting .317 so far since being called up. He does have a home run, also a power bat. Pittsburgh is going to leave him in there as long as he's producing, and he is. And what I like is now he's moved up to hitting 3rd in that lineup. I'll tell you, there's one league where I am set a catcher because I have Will Smith, and I really don't have room in the outfield, but I picked him up just to have him as a bench piece. Never know when somebody will get hurt, and I want to put him in my lineup. But number 2, I don't want somebody else to get him. So a lot of times you can use the waiver wire in kind of a defensive manner. You know what? If you get that catcher, stash him on your bench, and nobody else can grab him and utilize him. If you have the roster space, I would think about doing that. And now another young player. This is somebody I was really high on in the preseason. Got his shot and just really struggled and got sent down. But now he's back, and he's on the hottest team in baseball as of now. That's the Reds. Will Benson. Now, there have been so many Reds players that have been worth picking up over the last few weeks, but I'm definitely interested in him. Like I said, I was on him as a sleeper preseason because this is a guy who physically checks every box. He stands about 6'5", 230, and he's got elite sprint speed. So far, he's in the 89th percentile in that category. He can definitely go for both power and speed. If you don't know, this guy used to be one of the top prospects in the Cleveland organization. Didn't progress as fast as they want, but he's still only 25. He had a really strong spring with Cincy. Again, struggled out the gate, but now, all of a sudden, he's showing those signs. Just this past week, he had a pair of 3-hit games, has his average up to .299 on the season, and also has a couple of steals. And I don't need to mention, but I'll do it again, Cincinnati has been one of the best teams, the best team really in the majors over the past month. And this offense is firing on all cylinders. If he's in there, not even every day, but just enough to accumulate at bats, he can help your team for sure. And then I'll kind of cheat because I said I was going to give you 9 players, but I also have to give honorable mention to TJ Friedl. I mean, this guy's been producing pretty much all year except for one little minor stint where he was hurt. But man, giving you average, giving you speed, giving you a little bit of pop, scoring runs, we didn't think that was going to happen. So if he's still out there, also a nice addition. And before I get to the pitchers, I want to talk about a hitter who is going to be more for those deep leagues. Because, look, some of you might play in an NL or AL only league. I really love those leagues because they're so competitive. You definitely need to be scouring the waiver wire almost every week. And you need a guy who's just going to be playing, getting you counting stats, just has that upside. You have to take shots. I just added Raimel Tapia, who who is now in Milwaukee. Now, it's interesting here because he didn't qualify for a league like an NL-only league because he was just cut by Boston a couple of weeks ago and now finds himself in Milwaukee. You might remember Tapia was with Colorado for several years, pretty much a regular outfielder for them. And then the last couple of years, he's bounced around with Toronto, Boston, now finds himself with the Brewers. Well, he's getting his shot, and I've always liked his game. No, power isn't really part of it. He'll get you a few home runs, but a couple of years ago, he did steal 20 bases, and he's got a pretty good hit tool. He also plays defense, and Milwaukee, they keep trying all these pieces out in outfield. Just like they can't settle on anybody there until their prospects like Frelick and Churio are ready to come up. So for now, Tapia's getting a shot. When he first landed in Milwaukee, he couldn't buy a hit for the first several games, but now, last couple of games, coming on. Just today, had 2 hits, 3 runs, and that included a homer. I wouldn't rush out to get him in most typical 12-man roto leagues, but again, a deep league or an NL only, he's someone worth looking at. All right, now on to the pitchers. I've been a little slow to come around on this guy, and it occurred to me I really haven't, for some reason, talked about a lot of Boston players this year. Well, I'm also very hesitant to buy into an injury-riddled veteran who just keeps landing on the IL. I think it's finally time for me to talk about James Paxton. Now, maybe too late here. Paxton is owned in about 64% of Yahoo leagues. He's somebody who's been picked up a while ago in a lot of competitive leagues. But hey, there's a good chance, again, about 1/3 leagues, he's out there. Maybe somebody in your league hasn't caught on. He's been really good, looking like his best self recently. The best thing is he's going deep into games. His last start, he went 7 2/3 at Toronto, shutout. He's pitched to a 2.70 ERA and a 0.96 whip. The risk is real because this is somebody who didn't throw a single pitch in a game last year and only went 1 1/3 innings in 2021, recovering from Tommy John surgery, and he's 34 years old. But if he is truly back and healthy and stays healthy, before that string of bad luck and injuries, for several years, this is one of the better pitchers in the league. So if everything falls right, you might have yourself an ace. So if he's still out there, yeah, now's the time before it's too late. Another pitcher who also is a veteran, not quite as old as Paxton, but also recovering from injury, so looking like he's pitching better than ever. It's Ranger Suarez for the Philadelphia Phillies. For those who don't recall, he's someone a couple years ago was really a bullpen arm, just a middle reliever, would come in once in a while. Nothing special, nothing great statistically, and then out of nowhere, got moved into the rotation and became an ace down the second half of the season in 2021. So what happened in 2022? He was drafted really high, kind of a mid-rotation arm, expected to be a stud, and he just was bad the first couple of months, looked like a bust. But then the second half, he kept getting better and better and started to do some of the things that made him successful. So he actually wound up with pretty good stats. But just when everyone got their hopes up, then this year, right after the World Baseball Classic, playing for Venezuela, got hurt, was on the IL right before opening day, and hadn't pitched until recently. And here's the thing, for everyone who was excited to see him back and picked him up and put him in the rotation, man, you must be bitter because he got lit up his first 2 outings. So because of that, if you look at his season-long stats, it looks like he's terrible. It's very misleading because, again, just 1 or 2 appearances can make that stat line look deceptively bad. But what he's done recently has been nothing short of amazing. For 6 straight starts, he's gone at least 6 innings. In the last 4 starts, he's gone for 8, 7, 7, and 8 strikeouts. It's pretty tough competition for who's been the best pitcher in the month of June. Blake Snell has been lights out. Suarez is really not that far behind. He's been that good. At this point, I would say any league that he's still floating out there on the waiver wire, he should be scooped up by now. And then let's get to the young pitchers. High-end prospect who did the thing where his debut was terrible, but then he starts to look like what he should be. Let's talk about Gavin Williams of the Cleveland Guardians. First start against Oakland, got hit hard, looked like maybe he wasn't ready for the show, but then he went against Kansas City Royals, which is always nice, went 7 scoreless innings. Williams, one of their top pitching prospects, hard-throwing right-hander, former first-round pick. This guy definitely has all the accolades. He could be ready to star. Word of warning here, he's gotten 2 really good matchups in his first 2 starts. Now he gets to face the Atlanta Braves. So I do recommend picking him up, but I don't know if I can say I would trust him in my lineup just yet. Let's see how he does because One game good, one game bad. That's not big enough sample to say I really trust my ratios to him yet. And another former top prospect, this time in the Detroit Tigers organization. You know, that run of bad luck they've had with all these pitchers who were drafted highly and just struggled or got injured, mainly injuries. Well, Matt Manning is back. Now, I just talked about Gavin Williams, who's 6'6", hard-throwing right-hander. Matt Manning also stands 6'6". He also has basically the same pitch mix. Talk about fastball predominantly, and then slider and curveball. The difference is Manning does have a decent amount of major league experience under his belt. It's just injuries that have kept him out. He's back. He just faced the Texas Rangers on the road, which is no easy matchup. It was pretty good. Only gave up 2 runs and 3 hits. This guy's got just as much upside as Williams. I mean, he has been good in stretches. So again, he stays healthy. He's in a good situation here. Somebody who's flying under the radar right now. I try to pick him up before he starts putting together some quality starts. Just because the All-Star break is coming doesn't mean you should be sleeping on your fantasy roster. Make those important waiver wire moves now. Also, make some trades and be active. Now's the time where you have the time to do it. These are some players that I think that you should buy low and sell high at starting pitcher.